Everyone, welcome back to the Jays Fit Down podcast. I'm your host, Jane Gay, of course, and I'm here with Rusty Byrd, co-host of the Kirk and Byrd Sports show. Rusty, we're glad to have you on today to recap in what was a very exciting end to the 2022 season with Super Bowl 57. So thanks for coming on.
Oh yeah, no problem, man. I appreciate you considering me for this, man. I really do. That was to me a great Super Bowl. So we'll get to it though. But thank you.
Of course. So like I said, Super Bowl 57. Chiefs and Eagles, two teams who finished the regular season great, finished with the number one seed. Very similarly built squads there, and they made it to the big game, man. And it was a good one. Although Philly looked like they were just gonna kind of roll through the first few quarters, and they were playing pretty good. And but in the end, man, they just the final score ended up being Chiefs 38-35. They won. They came back from being down 24-14. What are your thoughts, man, on this game?
Well, first of all, for me, with it being Black History Month, this was the Black Quarterback Bowl for me. So I couldn't lose, bro. And you're a little younger. I don't know if you can relate, but I'm 50-some years old, and I remember when African American quarterbacks just didn't get the same opportunities. So for me, I remember being a kid thinking that if I played quarterback, and I did, like, it'll stop at high school, or I can't play quarterback at a major D1 school in the South, because I would see him at Michigan or Ohio State or places. But so to see quarterbacks that look like us, that was a big deal to me and some of my friends that grew up understanding that. So, going into the game, one of the things I said on my show is, I thought when it came down to this Super Bowl, this for the first time in a long time is one of the best matchups we've had. Like, I thought we had a legit Final Four. The Final Four teams that were remaining were the best four, I think, throughout the year. And then the two teams we got in the final were the two best teams. And easily you could look either way as to who could win. I mean, Philly has just got tremendous receivers and athletes all over the place, and played very well this year. And Kansas City, they've got, to me, and I think I've said this before, like, they've got the greatest quarterback of all time. Now, Tom Brady's the GOAT, but Patrick Mahomes, I think, is without one of, if not the best quarterback. But he was hampered by an ankle injury. And, people, I think people don't want to admit it, but it was a lot of doubt of what Kansas City could do this year without Tyreek Hill. All of that being said, my thoughts on the game on this. Philly came out looking like, we are going to ball. And I'm telling you, like, I legitimately thought that they had a perfect game plan. They ran the clock, okay? So they were keeping Kansas City off the field, but then they were moving the ball, executing greatly. Like, you could tell, like, you play ball, like, for the first series, they had a script. And you could tell that offense had worked on that script for 2 weeks, and they worked to perfection, went down and scored. But they also did it again and again. And I thought, and then with Patrick, hobbling a little bit, I thought, oh, man, I think the Eagles are going to win this game. And overall, I think it just goes to show how, taking nothing from Philly, I think the two differences in this game were this. And I said it on my show. It's Patrick Mahomes, maybe the greatest quarterback of all time, doing it like that was like his Jordan flu game, being hurt, doing it without great receivers, without a big name running back, and the other difference was also Andy Reid. Andy Reid he clearly is a Hall of Fame coach, but he was going against a guy only in his second year as a head coach who was in the Super Bowl. So I think those were the two major things. And you can tell Andy Reid made great adjustments, but also, I mean, his play calling and Eric Bieniemy's influence on the offense was outstanding.
Yeah, I agree. Just for a little reference, like you said, you mentioned the time of possession, which the Eagles won handily. So you would think a team that wins the time of possession battle, most of the time they'll end up winning the game. However, when it just seems like to me, I don't know, like there were some key plays that Philly made or didn't make that kind of hurt them. Like obviously the fumble, you remember that Nick Bolton picked it up, scored the touchdown for Kansas City. And yet Philly State, they kept responding, they kept fighting back, but it's just certain times during the game, everybody wants to mention the holding call on James Bradbury. However, to me, I don't think that did not cost him the game. What cost him the game was the best defensive line in the NFL this season did not register one sack. They gave up over 100 yards rushing. That's an issue, and I feel like Jonathan Gannon and his defensive staff didn't make any adjustments, during the second half, and it shows. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the defense?
Man, that is an excellent observation and absolutely true. So I watched the game over one of my friend's house. He's a big Philly fan. He had the whole Philly gear. He's loved the Eagles since he was a kid with Randall Cunningham, and he knows football. We coached together for a number of years. We won a championship in youth football with our kids, and he played college football at Virginia State, and we ran the defense for a couple of years, winning championships. But we were discussing kind of the strategies and everything, and I said, look, the Eagles are known for having this defense, this great defense line, and all the pressure, but I thought you couldn't just give Patrick Mahomes the credit, even though he's going to get a lot of it, and deservedly so. I think the difference between this and, 2 or 3 years ago when they were playing Tom Brady is Kansas City's offensive line. Yeah. If you remember, Kansas City a few years ago had major injuries. 3 starters weren't there. If you went down the list, you're like, who? You don't even know who those players were. And Patrick Mahomes still almost beat Tampa Bay. But I was thoroughly impressed with 2 things. Kansas City's, like you said, no sacks, but their offensive line, not just pass protection, because they knew, Mahomes was going to have, hampered by the ankle, but their run game was on point. I mean, and that was one of my keys to the game, was saying if Kansas City can run the ball effectively, that's going to take pressure off of Mahomes. But the other thing is this is why Mahomes is so great. I think he connected with 9 different receivers in that game, and so when you think we're just going to stop Travis Kelce or Juju, like he still was finding open players. Whether out of the backfield or anyway. So, but yeah, to me, that's a great point. Like, I thought that defensive line was going to be a problem, and it wasn't what I thought it would be. On the flip side, Philadelphia did a great job of moving and running the ball as well. Not, they didn't get it from the running back position, but Hurts ran effectively, and especially on all the short yardage plays where he, ran that sneak with the push. That was extremely effective.
Yeah, it was. He had 15 carries for 70 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns, and he also had 304 passing yards, 27 of 38. First quarterback in history to have 3 rushing touchdowns, a passing touchdown, over 300 yards. Jalen Hurts played really good in this game. Despite the loss, he gave it everything he had. And you even had Kansas City players and fans, everybody, giving him like, hey, this dude, he balled out. He gave it all he had. And he just, unfortunately, just defense just did not. They didn't get a stop in the second half. Kansas City scored on all of their possessions, and you can't win championship games that way. You and I both know that's not how it works. You can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was just, I don't know, man. It was a good game, but yeah, that defense for Philly didn't show up. So,
right. Yeah. It did not. And you consider that game ended with a higher score. It was over the over under the 51 points. It was a 73 points scored in that game. And if the Chiefs, they put up 24 points in the second half. And that was just incredible to the way they adjustments at halftime, which is again a mark of great coaching. And then just that never say die attitude. I mean, we've seen it over and over with Mahomes. Like, he literally take you down in 15 seconds. He definitely had plenty of time, with 2 minutes or so to get it done. And I just, I just think that I was, like you said, if the Eagles win, clearly Jalen Hurts is the MVP of that game. But he didn't, because he was playing against the GOAT. So,
Mahomes, man, what can you do? I mean, he's just he's phenomenal what he can do. I mean, even on that ankle, and so I have to think they have to give him something at halftime to make it just, I guess, numb or something, because the way he was moving, I mean, he had.
Let me tell you something. That brother couldn't feel nothing. Like, they get going into the game, they gave him some Toradol or whatever, the most effective and dangerous, probably numbing drug out there. But they know, hey, look, this is the last game of the year. You'll be over. Take this and yes, whatever they gave him, it worked, because he couldn't feel it. I'm sure.
He didn't feel anything. I mean, the way he was moving, especially those scrambles he had late in that game, which were huge. He had over 20-yard scramble. It was a very key play that put him in field goal range for Bucker to kick that game winner. And it was just those timely plays. Kadarius Toney, I mean, his big punt return, right? We remember that.
Yeah,
that was huge, very huge. And he ended up scoring that next offensive drive on that. And the Chiefs ran. This is what I'm talking about with the defense for Philly, because it's the eye discipline, and it's it's some issues there, because in the red zone, I don't know if you remember, they ran the same play to Tony, and then they ran it to Sky Moore on the other side of the field, and both times they were wide open.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know exactly what went wrong there, but like I said, I think it just in the second half there was just it's just a kind of a base, kind of soft defense that the Eagles were kind of playing there, and Patrick Mahomes just picked it apart going down the field, and they just couldn't. All that open space, man. When you do that, you're gonna get marched on. So,
yep.
Yeah, those are my observations there. But moving on that note, man. Chiefs are champs. Eagles, great year, made it to the big game, fall short. So where does Philly go from here, man? What do you think are some things that they need to address in the offseason and, put emphasis on?
So again, I thought I thought Jalen Hurts played extremely well, but I thought that I think that team is built very well. Like, they like Miami have figured we can take, and we don't know, I'm not going to say Jalen Hurts is an average quarterback. He's a good quarterback, yeah. But they put talent. I mean, the receiving core he has is outstanding, and that's what they did down in Miami. And so I think they look really good at receiver. In terms of the running game, like, normally Miles Sanders has been pretty solid over the year. But, he only had 16, outside of Jalen Hurts, they didn't really have much in the running game. But they've had a solid running game through the year. But I would say I would definitely look to, because Jalen Hurts can't do that forever, because you're just he'll be like another Cam Newton. He'll eventually wear down. I would look to get more speed at the running back position. One of the things I said is I don't think you need to go get a first-round pick running back like a Saquon Barkley or somebody who can, because these guys get hurt. I think the key to a running game is just somebody fast. Most Division I running backs, major college running backs, they're all about the same. They're good. Like, if you can get them in space, if you have good blocking. So I think the key is getting young and fast. Fresh legs are the key. And so when I was watching, just a few years ago, the Chiefs drafted Soler out of LSU. Is that his name?
Hilaire. Yeah.
Yeah. So Clyde Edwards here. Yeah. So they got him out of LSU. And the thing he brought there was just fresh legs. But once you start taking the pounding and getting hurt, like, you just move on. Don't wait for him to ever try to heal. And that's what's happening in Dallas. Like, Pollard just is younger and fresher legs. Ezekiel just taking too many hits. And to be honest, if you take any running back from the SEC that played especially 4 years, they've taken a pounding in college. They've taken a pounding in practice. And so you look at those Alabama running backs, and you look at Gurley, Georgia running backs taking these, like, Gurley was outstanding and he just disappeared. So I think I would go and I would get a speed. I would have two more type of running backs, someone extremely quick and shifty and fast, and then you can still keep a Sanders, but maybe a bruiser, but somebody who can give the defense 2 or 3 type of looks at running back. I know my brother played professional football at middle linebacker, and he's like, the hardest thing is when somebody's bruising, and then another running back comes and he's shifty. Like, it's hard to make that adjustment. So that's one of the things I think I would look for Philly to do. And it's still on their defense. I thought the defense was, it's really good defense, but I thought some of their pass defense could have, had a few gaps, and that'd be a place I'd look to fill in.
Yeah, I think so too. And a big thing to mention here is that offensive coordinator Stain Steichen and Jonathan Gannon were both looking like they're going to be head coaches coming up pretty soon. Now, Steichen he flew to Indianapolis today. So I expect that to become finalized for him to be the next head coach in Indy. So you lose your OC there. And then Jonathan Gannon, we've been hearing him in Arizona lately, some, rumors there. So it's possible that you lose both your coordinators. So for Nick Sirianni, it's kind of a tough bind him right now. He's doing something really good there. And this was the year where it took off. Everything took off offensively, defensively. And like I said, Eagles had a great defense this whole year. Led the league in sacks, pressure. They were just really good up front. Just couldn't get it done in the Super Bowl when it mattered. Make that timely play. Make that Brandon Graham sack play against New England a couple of years ago. That strip. They didn't have that play in the game. And so I think defense is something they need to address in the offseason. Just in the middle of the field, particularly. That's an area where they struggle in coverage, and also just like you said, the running back position with Miles Sanders, who is set to be graded soon. So there's a lot of questions there, but overall, great season for both teams, and we've got some offseason coming up for us. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. So but other than that, it was a great game. I enjoyed it. And I had Brianna perform the halftime show, so it was a good Super Bowl. So I really liked it, man. But was there anything you wanted to add, man? Any last few thoughts here?
So no, overall, I thought it was a great Super Bowl. I thought both teams played great. You can tell the way it came down to the very end. I thought it was, again, extremely well coached. Just the little things like, Kansas City, having an opportunity to score in that last minute and realize, we don't need to score and give them, with time that can give them time to come back. So, with running back sliding and keeping the clock running, making Philly use the timeouts, like I don't take those things for granted. I see where some coaches just don't know how to really manage those clocks, understand those situations well. So again, that was done well. I mean, you're putting the game in your kickers, in their hands to take care of. And that made me a little nervous, especially since he missed the field goal earlier in the game. But overall, man, it was a treat. It really was a treat. I thought, everything about the game, was enjoyable and fun. It was one of the best Super Bowls I've ever seen when you consider, how well there was, how well the game was coached. It was played, and like you said, halftime, everything kind of. Oh, I will say, I think the last thing I will point out is this: is you can't play a Super Bowl and have a turf be that bad and actually impact the game. You can't have the turf being the factor when it's a dome stadium. And, that impacted too many. There were a lot of plays that could have gone longer or this or that, and whether or stopped because the defender slipped or because the receiver or the running back slipped. And so that they're going to have to do something about that if they ever go back to Arizona. But other than that, I was pulling kind of for Kansas City because I wanted Patrick Mahomes to again establish that he's the GOAT. Like, people would definitely be blank saying, well, you've been there 3 times, only won once. Well, now he's been there 3 times, he's won twice. And Jalen Hurts, I'm sure they're happy to have gotten there. And I'm hoping that he'll have chances to win in the future. But overall, excellent game. Good way for Black History Month to go.
Yeah, absolutely. You love to see that, man. It was great. Like you said, I think the NFL definitely needs to look into that. The State Farm Stadium and Arizona Cardinals, they need to definitely look into that because that caused a lot of players to slip on both teams, and a lot of them were talking about after the game, like Lane Johnson said it was like playing on a water park out there. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, yeah, that's something you definitely got to look into for you to leave. And investigate into that. And another thing, again, I want to tell all the Eagles fans out there to please stop blaming the loss on James Bradbury's holding call. That was not the reason that you lost the Super Bowl. It depends on how you look. I mean, I'm not going to get into it, but
there's 2 ways to look at it. If you're a Philly fan, you're blinded. You only saw pass interference. If you're a KC fan, it was definitely pass interference. And if you're neutral, you got to say, like what I said to my friend. Like, he did hold him. Right. And if you think about it, he was beat, even though he held him. If you look back, he still got behind him. And he should have held him because they had scored 2 times prior in short goal line situations, running similar routes where the guys were wide open. So he had to hold. The defender actually said in the post-game interview, yes, I held him. And it was a hold. Like, it's just unfortunate it was that time and the way things laid out. But look, Patrick Mahomes was going to find a way to beat you. And they still probably would have kicked the field goal and could have won. It's not that big of a deal to me because it was a hold. And if he had not done it, he could have then ran full speed and had a chance to catch the ball. If you notice, after he was held, he didn't try as hard to go catch it because he wanted to play it off, like play with the fact that he was held. Because like if he was held, he could not make as much of an attempt. So
right.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I see why they will be mad, but I also think those same Philly fans, if the exact same thing happened on the opposite scale, they would not say, "You're right. No, we won, but you're right, Kansas City. That was not a hold." No, they would. I get it. Most of them are probably saying, it was a hold, but you don't make that call at that time. But to me, a hold is a hold is a hold. If they were going to call in the first quarter, the second, or whatever, overtime, whatever, you got to make the call.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the NFL officiating has been something that has been under scrutiny for the last couple of seasons specifically, and it has been bad in some moments this season. Like I said, the past couple of years, and a lot of fans are really mad about that. And I do think personally that the league should take a look into the officiating, like and sit down, at the owners' meeting and everything that's coming up in March, and just kind of sit back and just watch over the tape and evaluate. Yeah, there were a lot of bad calls this year. So the officiating definitely needs to be investigated. But overall, yeah, man. Like I said, I just wanted to put that out there. So Philly fans, stop Bradbury, or not. I'm sorry. Yeah, stop blaming the refs for that call, because you would go watch the tape and you'll see why you lost.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But thanks, Rusty, for joining us on the podcast tonight, man. It was a pleasure recapping the Super Bowl with you, and we look forward to a great offseason. And I spent a lot of all these coaching changes and everything. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of months. So yeah, no doubt. Thanks for having me. And again, I just got to give props to both quarterbacks and both coaches, and the coordinators. But I'm hoping that from this Eric Bieniemy, and I would really appreciate Andy Reid pointing out several times that Eric Bieniemy was doing a great job. And so he kept saying that. So I hope Bieniemy gets a really great opportunity from this. But thank you again for having me. Of course, man. And thank you. And you have a good rest of your night, Rusty. We'll be talking again soon.
Yep. Okay. God bless you.